UFOs, UAPs, aliens, the Greys, the Nordics, the reptilians, the mantises.
Would you say mantisae?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but reality is proving to be a whole lot stranger, but way more subdued. The government opens a website, drops thousands of heavily redacted files, and everyone just keeps going to work.
Exactly. They're showing us physical, anomalous objects in the skies and around our oceans, but hiding the matrix. Welcome to Frequency 48.
Today we're tuning in the frequency dial past the nuts and bolts and all the way through into the mind-bending fabric of reality itself.
Let's tune in. Oof. Yeah, that was take one, bitch.
Welcome to Frequency 48. So we talked a lot about disclosure and nuts and bolts. We didn't even get into like alien beings and stuff, and even that would probably be like low frequency first step down the rabbit hole, maybe the second step, because even on Fox News in the recent weeks, they're talking about 4 different alien classes.
Yep.
Which 4 are they saying?
It was on ESPN, dude. I thought it was, I reposted it on Instagram because I thought it was hilarious that it was on ESPN of all places. Yeah, it was Nordics, Greys, of course. Greys should always come first, I feel like. That's like the most pop culture. I would say the most mainstream, obviously. We have in our phones and our emojis, for Christ's sake. So Greys, Nordics, reptilians, and mantids. Which I find funny that they jumped to reptilians and mantis are pretty, I would say, high frequency in the rabbit hole, deep in the rabbit hole. Also, what they represent, respectively, the mantids are supposed to be more ancient, wise, positive beings. Reptilians are supposed to be more, ancient but dark beings. At least that's what I've gathered from like the gist and the vibe of both entities, creatures, whatever they are. Yeah.
If you were going to meet one, who would you choose?
I would probably, like, realistically, like if I really said, okay, this is going to happen tomorrow, I would want to do Nordics to warm up. Nordics are hybrids to warm up to it. You know what I mean? And then I would have to see a Gray from far away or something, you know what I'm saying? Like in real life, like across the street. I can't be like right in front of me. I need to like adjust. I need a slow adjustment period. It's kind of like Thomas Jane at Contact in the Desert.
Oh, fuck. Yeah.
When he was talking about,
that was a crazy story.
Yeah. And he's talking about how this, I guess, like light being, whatever it was, coming to him, and then he'd freak out. He could feel his fear and it backs away. And it took him like 40 minutes, he said, almost an hour to warm. Yeah, so imagine,
at least. And then
and that's a floating fairy thing in front of you, which is like pretty, like I could deal with that kind of, like, that's not as scary as
better than a mantis or a freaking reptilian.
Right.
But yeah, after 40 minutes of it coming back and forth, I think I'd be like him too. Like I'd finally acclimate and be like, I'm not getting out of this. So let's do this.
Right. Yeah. So I would, that would be my answer. Nordic, warm up, Gray, probably, because that's probably the next easiest thing to get in, get adjusted to. And then I would probably save reptilian for last, just because of the negative stories about them, Right. But they also seem to be, I don't know. It depends how you feel. Like if you're scared of lizards, that's going to be your last thing. If you're scared of bugs, the mantids are going to be your last thing. I'm actually really curious about the mantids. I want to do we'll do a whole episode on each class eventually.
I think I'd pick Nordic too. By all the experience or stories, those are the most tame.
Yeah,
of them all.
That too.
Yeah, so that's all like kind of low frequency, first couple steps down the rabbit hole, and we were talking about how we got into the subject, and that was kind of, our entry point was, nuts and bolts, things in the sky,
mainstream,
people being abducted. But then once you start hearing more stories, you get further down the rabbit hole. There's people that have NDEs, near death experiences, where they report very, very eerily similar experiences that, some people think they can explain away, some people can't, but I think that's kind of like the mid frequency is getting into the consciousness stuff.
Yeah, I would say it's mid to high for sure. I personally, I think I would probably, probably put it in the intermediate advanced frequency, high frequency, the consciousness topic, spirituality stuff. But it's it's a slippery gradient right there. Like it's, the psychics too, the whole psychic study, that both Russia, China, and US had done since the US,
the remote viewers. Yeah.
US, that stuff is pretty compelling because it comes from the government. They're declassified reports. They could be disinformation. They totally could be just, hey, the CIA is just like, hey, let's make up a bunch of crazy shit and throw it out there to like throw everybody off. Sure, it could be a thing, but there's tons of it. And as you and I have found out in real life, in person, doing the legwork on the ground at Contact in the Desert, the last 2 years, we've talked to people who have left their body, who have their own experiences with this stuff. It's becoming more normal to talk about. It's way less taboo. It's way less fringe than it used to be. It's still pretty fringe, I think. It's definitely not mainstream. I can't go out and talk to my neighbors about it. They may have heard of these things in somewhere along the line, but they're not like, into it. So, but yeah, the government psychic research programs are very, very clearly were a thing. Project Stargate, Joe McMoneagle, Bob Monroe, the Gateway tapes, which you and I have both done, and I had my a small experience doing that. So that was
I barely tipped my toe in that, but it because I've been putting it off. I'm like, I need to be in the right mind space. I need to have enough time. I need to not be bothered. But I just one morning did it, and I just did like the first tape, and I was like, hey, I feel like really great from it.
That's good.
And then there was a part where it was so weird, the feeling where they were playing the tones, and they're like, just let your brain activate. And I swear to God, like I was feeling this side of my head, like it was tingling. I was like, am I going to have a stroke? Like I felt.
No, the whole the whole purpose is to sync your left and right hemispheres. You can get yourself into a meditative state or that will have your logic mind and your intuitive mind connected, working together. When they're not working together, they're fighting each other. Joseph Campbell talks about this. So that's why I'm excited that you're into his stuff, because
is it Joseph or Tom?
Tom, sorry. Cut that out.
I think Joseph Campbell's
the hero's journey guy.
Hero's journey.
And it's funny because the hero's mythology. This is a breadcrumb. I need to do a whole episode. We should do a whole episode looking back on like breadcrumbs. I've been wanting to tell this forever, because it's weird for me to explore this on my own, from my own life, like looking at these little things that I thought were irrelevant, but they were like memories that stuck with me because I thought of how weird they were. And I look back to where we're at right now, and I'm like, it's all connected. They're literally all connected to this fucking topic, and it's spooky.
Well, that's like synchronicity, which I think maybe that's the next step up, because when we get to that, I'll talk about, the soul contracts and stuff like that before you're born. But yeah, I think I know what you're talking. I know what you're talking about. But
yeah. Anyway, it's you sync your brain together, and then you're able to you're kind of it's like you're becoming God. You're merging these two pieces, your negative side, your shadow side, and your good side together. They're working together. It's a lot like Bleach. It's actually like one of the things that I don't know if it's an actual connection in Bleach. Like I don't know if Tite Kubo meant to put this in from a spiritual perspective. I think it's just a weird coincidence. But you know how Ichigo goes in, like he meditates, right, to learn how to unlock his powers, basically, right, with Zangetsu, with his sword, and he goes into his inner world, right, and it's all upside down and fucked up, right. And until you meditate, until you work on yourself from a therapy perspective and like a spiritual perspective, that's kind of what's going on in like a lot of people. Right. And anyway, I draw a lot of parallels with some of the aspects of Bleach, believe it or not. Maybe we could pull up clips of that.
Bankai.
But yeah, in the show, like he kind of like you know how he's fighting this evil side of himself, or what he thinks is the evil side, which is his hollow side. And then he ends up like working together with it. And then he like, boom, now he knows how to bankai. Right. So it's kind of like that in a way. It's to get your everything in your body and your brain and your mentality and your spirituality perfectly in harmony and in sync. And when that happens, you can do some crazy shit. You're really, that's like the full potential. You're starting to touch the full potential of what humans can do. And that probably is a good segue into the high frequency stuff.
So yeah, like, I mean, we've covered kind of most of the mid frequencies, and, you know, when you're getting into the rabbit hole, you don't realize that, you know, it starts connecting into this consciousness stuff, because like the Ariel school, there was a school in South Africa where all the kids, a great many of the kids, I can't say all the kids, a great many of the kids out at recess saw a UFO land and little beings come out, and they talked to them, but they weren't talking. The kids said they were talking in her mind, and they were giving us messages. And there was like, how many kids? Like 40 or 50 kids that all said they saw this. And maybe like one naysayer.
Yeah.
But, you know, the UFO topic connects to it in that way. And then also, we didn't go a lot into like mediumship, you know, the consciousness, and maybe that's more high frequency, is,
I think
you
so.
know, conscious, like the mediumship, and being able to talk to people that have died, because it's all consciousness, and aliens who are, you know, a billion years more advanced than us probably would figure that out. But what other kind of, like, if we're moving up to the high frequency, we're at like frequency 48.999, like what kind of stuff falls into that category?
So high frequency is probably where I've been dwelling. Probably you too. I think I've exposed you to more of the spiritual side of stuff, the NDE stuff. Like last year, you know, at Contact in the Desert, I think you started seeing. I remember you were more nuts and bolts. I started getting more spiritual. That was just separate. I was just on my own journey there, but like I started seeing the connections from the spiritual side. It was super obvious. I was just like, oh yeah, consciousness, this. You literally raise, like, so frequency, as we're talking about it, is we're just using frequency to kind of give it a gauge. Probably put a graphic on screen to elaborate. But in frequency, in the spiritual perspective, is low vibe, high vibe. That's the dumbest down way to describe it to most people. When you're sad, you're low vibe. When you're laughing at a comedy club, you're high vibe, right? Pretty easy. There's a frequency scale, color scale, but it goes through the emotions in your body. And I actually learned it from therapy. And I was like, wow, maybe. So I started getting into the literal frequency stuff, taking it a little more seriously from going into therapy. People were like, look at these energy charts and frequency charts, and these are your emotions on a gradient scale, essentially. And I was like, huh, okay, I'll stay open-minded. Let me see if it helps, right? I just notice where I'm at and what I do and where it puts me at. And I've been trying to adjust my life ever since learning these things and trying to apply them. Anyway, what else includes like high frequency? It's like this is where it gets into the, maybe not the deepest part of the rabbit hole, but it's definitely in the advanced category. Interdimensional realms, beings, different entities, dimensions. I think dimensions and realities are a way of easily phrasing it. Everybody, you know, you can just reference Marvel movies, right? That's multiverse.
I was going to say, an interesting thing you bring up dimensions is that they've mentioned interdimensional beings several times in these UAP Congress hearings. And in fact, that legislation that I was talking about, where, you know, they said to, you know, release things 25 years after the incident, they intentionally put the words in there, non-human intelligence, into it instead of saying aliens
Right.
or extraterrestrials, because the government could easily say like, hey, they're not extraterrestrials, they're interdimensional, and not release it. So it was very specific language that they used, non-human intelligence, to cover, interdimensional beings being a possibility.
I agree. I think that's exactly why they did that. I think that's also why they did UFO to UAP. Everybody hates it, right? I am, to this day, I will stick with UFO. I think we all know it means UAP too, right? We all know it goes underwater.
Right.
It doesn't matter. It's just the phrase, just the branding of it, right? But we're classicists in that way, I guess. But with NHI, it totally, and then the plasmas that are just coming out now is like, that's the other thing there. What I find, I never would have guessed in a million years. I always thought it would be grays. It would be physical beings. That's what they're going to wean you into. They're starting with plasmas. They're starting with plasma orbs. And I think,
what do you mean they're starting with them?
So like the newest stuff that I've been seeing floating around, from Grush, from, not Burchett.
Like they're starting to introduce the topic.
Yeah, they're basically coming out and saying plasma and orbs are for sure a thing.
From corporeal bipedal type life to what I would consider like sentient plasmoid life, but there are several that the U.S. government is aware of.
Like these are, whatever these are real, and they go in and out of reality. There's tons of footage of them.
And that's what Chris Bledsoe has been experiencing, is the plasma and orbs. He had a real experience with a craft and beings too, but that's what he's primarily been experiencing afterwards. And, speaking, kind of going back to nuts and bolts, we consider, the whistleblowers like Lou Elizondo kind of nuts and bolts. And that's what they concentrate on, because once they start going down these rabbit holes, people stop taking it seriously as much. But in his book Imminent, he describes in a chapter, an orb came into his house. He couldn't ever tell his wife about the stuff that he worked on.
Right.
An orb came in his house. I forget which color it was, if it was green, because I think the blue ones are bad. It was green. He saw it in his house. He didn't say anything. And then he looked at his wife, and his wife was like, what the hell was that? Was that part of your work? And he's like, I can't talk about it, honey. But they literally followed him. And then if you read Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, that's about the whole OSAP program, how it got started, basically going from NIDS to OSAP, and then the military contractors that were on Skinwalker Ranch, a lot of them lived elsewhere, like East Coast, and they got hitchhikers, orbs, but also getting into entities as well.
We saw our own orbs, and I'm pretty, well, I haven't seen any, we haven't seen any orbs up close. I think that's a whole different kind of category when you see something like within a range of like 50 feet or something, you know what I mean? Like the orbs we saw were, I don't know how many hundreds of feet away, thousands of feet away, maybe the ones high up in the sky. But when we did the sky watch with Bledsoe and his family, but outside of that, I haven't seen any, personally outside of that experience. But anyway, the other stuff in the high frequency category is, if we stick with like consciousness, it's all the deepest questions: who we are, why are we here? But it's all spiritual. It's not religious at all. There's no denomination. And it goes into psychedelics like DMT, mushrooms, acid. You take high amounts of those, high dosages, you leave your body, you're fucking gone. You'll have an experience of some kind that will, probably convince you that, and there's so many accounts of this stuff. The DMT laser experiment that Danny Goler, I would say, I'm pretty sure he pioneered, right? Is super fascinating, super compelling.
And we met him at Contact in the Desert too. Like we talked to him for like 5 minutes. He was super chill.
Yeah.
Gave us some time. I don't know if people swarm him or anything, but
I don't know. He seemed to be
nice.
he seemed to be pretty popular. I thought he did really well with his talks too. He was very articulate, very responsive, like very alert and like really ready to go, like good energy. But yeah, like his experiments are pretty crazy. The stuff he does with Andrew Gallimore and I think Chase Hughes did the intravenous DMT, and they're trying to like map the space and be in it for like 5 hours plus or more. Anyway, where that goes into is all of these topics in the high frequency are breaking out of bounded reality, this matrix, this just our 5, 6 senses, whatever you believe we have. I think we have more senses. I think there's actually an official like scientific article that came out like recently saying we have other senses in our body. Like we can, that we don't really label it. We just give labels to the big ones, right? Sight, hearing, taste, touch. But you take outside of that, we see this tiny little spectrum of light, tiny little spectrum of audio frequencies, right? We can't hear much. So if you take all that in consideration, you stay open-minded and you look into these high frequency categories, it goes into what is our reality? What are the multiverses? What is that? Well, interdimensional things, other dimensions, other realities, other parallel universes, leaving your body, holographic universe, the matrix theory, simulation theory, all of it. And then you're just like, oh yeah, it all, when you map it all out and you look at it all, it's all connected. It's all very much the same thing.
People say, I feel like I've heard this a lot. Like it's kind of become cliche and a trope. They're like, the 2 biggest questions are we alone? What happens to us when we die?
Right.
And it could be actually like the same answer. What's been fascinating me is when the first year we went to CID, Contact in the Desert, is I learned about soul schools. Like a medium was telling me about it, that I was just randomly talking to. And then we went to a workshop and they talked about it. I was like, what are you talking about? And they described like, we're all souls, we go back to kind of like the source or whatever, and whatever realm that is. And, the whole goal, which we don't know what the goal is to like improve ourselves. And Earth is kind of a school to improve your soul, because you're not going to learn anything in this perfect realm. But also, I guess there are like some schooling or college classes before you kind of do it again. Let's go back to Earth. Let's learn some more.
The law of one touches on that too. Basically, it says it kind of echoes the same thing. All channeled text channeling is the big one too. We didn't touch on that. Channeling, psychic stuff. Bashar, I'm really into that stuff. I never thought I'd be. Crazy for me to even say that.
I know. I feel like I'm going around like I'm those new age old boomers walking around with like hemp t-shirts and hemp pants, living in little mountain towns like Sedona and Boulder. Like I feel like I'm turning into that, and I wish I had a few $1 million to where I could retire and just go all in on that anyway.
Yeah, I would do probably gateway tapes for like, I would probably do a lot of meditation, honestly, if I had a lot more free time. Just trying to really deeply explore that stuff. But it's honestly kind of it's also a little bit of excuse. Everybody's got, I think, 30, 40 minutes a day that they can carve out to put focus to it. And then once I started trying it on a personal level, like, I had some very minor, but still profound kind of experiences with just meditation, all this stuff to say, like, you can have everything we just said, you can break out of reality just meditating, just focusing on your breath, types of breath work, all very natural, holistic. You're not taking any substances. So when you take you map it all out and you take it all in, you're like, there's got to be something here. Like you can do this naturally. So it's a part. So that's where I'm at now, is part of my frequency exploration in the rabbit hole here is Gnosticism, is this knowing, this hidden occult, hidden knowledge that's been hidden from us, maybe secret societies, maybe that's a thing. The more you look into that, it seems like it's likely that there's been people and things pulling the strings behind the scenes to keep us asleep, not awake to our real abilities, to who we are, why we're here, etc. All these big questions.
The reptilians.
And then if you go into Gnosticism, above the reptilians is archons. They call them archons in Gnosticism. And every time I hear the word archon,
I don't know anything about that.
So in StarCraft, every time I hear the word archons, I always think of StarCraft 2, because there's the Protoss, you can build game units called Archons. So every time I hear it, I think of the character image in my head. I'm like, these are the fuckers controlling shit behind the scenes, and they're controlling reptilians, and then it goes into a deeper thing. We'll get deeper into that, I think, eventually. But all this stuff is together, and it's very much pointing towards a simulation of some kind for us to get better as souls in human form. And video games are the perfect analogy, which is a great little segue here, but like, because you and I are really big into gaming and anime also. I think one of the things we first bonded on was those two things before we got into this stuff. And video games are the absolute perfect analogy for our reality, in my opinion. Once you digest all this crazy shit, it really seems like that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's a pretty good analogy, but I don't picture it. I don't think it's really like that episode of Rick and Morty where Morty was playing the Bob video game, and he like goes through and he dies, and he wakes up, and he's in a video arcade. It's like a 90s arcade.
Not bad, Morty. You kind of wasted your 30s though with that whole bird watching phase.
Where's my wife?
Morty, you were just playing a game. It's called Roy. Snap out of it. Come on.
What happened?
What makes you hesitate about that theory?
Well, I don't think we're like strapped into the Matrix or have a VR headset on per se.
Sure.
I mean, it would probably be
not like
some other kind of crazy technology,
Yeah. I don't think it's, I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think it's
like literal.
No, yeah, for sure. I don't think it is either. I mean, I guess it could be. It could be exactly the way Rick and Morty portrayed it, but I highly doubt it. I have a feeling it's just more spiritual, and I tend to use the word ethereal. I'm going to be using that a lot, most likely, on the podcast, because it to me it when I say ethereal, it just means like this space that has no form. It's like your dreams. It's like how your dreams can change. Like the background of the dream can just morph in and out of different situations and settings and things. Right. It's this. That's what it is when you're kind of in soul form. You're just floating around. You can just wean in and out of this ether. The ether space. Anyway.
So what about 0 point energy? Is that in this high frequency realm, or is that maybe lower frequency? Like, talk about 0 point energy. What do you know about that?
So yeah, I've been getting into Ash and Forbes streams a lot lately, and even before I found Ash and through getting deeper into all this stuff, Stephen Greer talked about this, 0 point energy, which is I'm hugely fascinated by it. I think Nikola Tesla was the first person to discover it. I'm pretty damn convinced of that. I've always had this weird. I'm not really super deep into science or scientists, but Tesla has always like piqued my curiosity, even before I got into this stuff. Because we wouldn't have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, the radio. Like he was literally the magnet fucking expert of our time. And if he lived longer or had, a different set of circumstances when he was here, I think he would have literally changed the world. We would be way ahead if, we had the things that he was working on. But 0 point energy is kind of that. It's basically tapping into energy that's literally all around us in the quantum.
What's Greer's movie? Like, Stephen Greer is a little controversial, but he has a movie. Oh, it's called like The Lost Century, right? Where it's about that. Like, we've been going down this stupid direction of digging up old dead things and processing it and putting them in little engines that make tiny explosions that then put the carbon into our atmosphere, when we could have been going on that Nikola Tesla route where we'd have the 0 point energy. We'd have free energy. What would the economy be like today if we had that? Yeah,
that's one of the things I think about all the time. And I think Greer, Ashton, I think echoes Greer in this, you give it 20 years. Once you have that tech available to everybody on the planet, the entire world shifts into a utopia. when you say overnight, it's not literally overnight, but it's within a 20-year period. I think Greer's maybe I think he's underestimating it. Honestly, my mind loves thinking about it just from a fun, speculative perspective, point of view. And if you use it right, you can shift. The Earth would be a utopia. You have literally free. If energy is free, then the cost of most things like fucking plummets to almost zero in some cases. And then if you look at what Ashton does an amazing job with researching
practical conversion of 0-point energy. Thomas Vallone, PhD, by the way,
deeply, and presenting it to people on his live streams and on pre-recorded stuff, the actual science of it. He's been like, I got to commend him. He's digging into the papers, into whatever he can find, and trying to learn the science himself, not traditionally being a scientist, inferring stuff. I'm sure he's had to learn a lot, big learning curves, but he's pretty convinced, and he's just pushing it out the same way Greer is. But I see him as like he's an echo of Greer, but he's got his own approach with it. And what I agree with both of them on is how if these things teleport, essentially, that's how I look at it. They go. It's not, you need to, right now, anybody listening, if you're into the whole light speed conversation, you're thinking about it all wrong. You need to put that away. It doesn't matter. Light years traveling A to B is not how this works, period. It's wormholes or teleporting or something like that. And
gravity that we don't really understand.
Right. Controlling gravity and time and all of that. And because it's all related.
And how it actually comes together.
Yep.
Because we have theories that we're like, well, they make sense with XYZ. We haven't figured out, LMNOP.
To me, that's one of the most fascinating things. If we can teleport, then why the fuck are we still wasting 9 to 5, on the freeway? It's just like, you get real frustrated real quick. So anyway, but you could think about it. You just teleport around everything, all of our supplies. You can literally help build things so much faster. Like the efficiencies and things we could do is just, you just let your brain think about it for a little while, and it just goes off on tangents of every industry that gets revolutionized just by having teleportation technology, let alone unlimited, incredibly powerful energy, essentially. Yeah. At your fingertips, you can do literally anything. This is like the last unlock of a lot of things that we need. And if the government has it, if the deep state has it, if there's archons behind the scenes pulling these strings of not letting us have it, that's probably where I'm at the most bottommost of the iceberg of the dark side of all this stuff. And, but it's part of the high frequency. It's part of the deep truth of disclosure, who we are, what we are, all the mysteries, including the aliens, including the interdimensional beings, including plasma and craft and all the physics, everything. It encapsulates all of it.
I think I'm kind of pessimistic that we're not gonna learn any of that in our lifetime. I'll be surprised if they do admit there's aliens, but maybe I'm just a pessimist, but a skeptic.
From my point of view, that's a good point. When I think about this stuff, if they say there's aliens, one of the first questions you got to answer: how did they get here? Where'd they come from? Right?
You should say that in your Obama voice. How did they get here? Where'd they come from?
I want to know how they got here.
Larry David voice.
Do they have light speed travel? Do they have Tesla cars? Because if they're Tesla, I don't like Elon anymore. Tesla's got to go. Electric's got to go. We still need to mine fossil fuels for the next 150 years minimum.
That's pretty good. I gotta work on my Trump impression.
I gotta watch more of it because we need to do stuff like that. It'd be funny. That's the stuff we got to get used to doing on camera.
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of like kind of summarizing our journeys and just kind of pretty much the journeys of everybody that kind of go from a low, mid, high frequency going further and further down the rabbit hole. We've talked about everything from nuts and bolts to, consciousness to different dimensions.
Yeah, so we're going to definitely do deep dives on all of these. They all require a lot of attention to detail and things there. If you resonated with our frequency here, please like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know what you think and want to see and hear more of. Specifically, if you live in Arizona, the 48th state, hence our title of our podcast, where the 48 comes from, get in touch with us. Reach out. Link will be in the description, bio, all the things. It'll be easy to get in touch with us. We're looking to meet people in person as well as remote here to hear people's stories, people that are not, these big people in the government and stuff like that. Those are people that are out of touch. We want to get in touch with the everyday people here in our state in Arizona. We've got some plans coming up, but yeah, we're going to do some deep dives into all these things and get in touch.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. We're going to have, our takes on things and just love to reach out and meet people, especially locally. That's it for today. Do us a favor, hit the like, subscribe to us. You'll see more content. Catch you later.